financial independence is if your passive income can exceed your living expenses. Boom, you have financial independence. How? I never even thought about it like that. I always thought, okay, work, open a practice, open a second practice and multiple practices in the future, and work till I'm 60, 70, and then get to enjoy. But the concept of financial independence was so brand new, I didn't know what it was. But
welcome back to the Art of Connecting podcast. We are doing our first mobile recording here. This is the first episode I've ever recorded outside of my studio. So hopefully it sounds okay. Dr. Tam said I sound good, so I'm going to assume we sound good. And so we're going to go ahead and get started with this episode. This is a really cool episode as well because Dr. Tam actually reached out to me and said, hey, I found your podcast and it seems interesting to me and would love to be a guest. So we are honored to have you on today and thank you for reaching out. How are you doing?
Thanks for having me. I'm doing great, man. Doing great.
Good. That's awesome. So can you tell me and tell the guests a little bit about yourself? Because this is actually our first time getting to officially meet each other.
So, Alex Tam here. And I started my career as a chiropractor back in 2009. And it wasn't just something that I chose. It was because my mom had something called trigeminal neuralgia, which is nerve pain in the face. And after a lot of medications, surgeries that doctors propose, I mean, she's had a lot of shots and Botox and cortisone. It didn't help. And 2 years later, it was a family friend recommended a chiropractor a few hours away. And for the first time in 2 years, she was able to get improvement. And after 3 months, she was actually 50% better compared to where she has been in the last 2 years because it was just going downhill. And that was in 2004. Since then, I said, you know what, this is exactly what I want to do for other people. Enrolled myself in school and graduated in 2008, opened our office in 2009. Same office that we have here today, except it's just been remodeled over time. And it's been 15 years. But right around 2018, I went to a business conference and realized that there's something called real estate investing in multifamily, right? Prior, I've invested in some single family homes. So then I dove in, how I do everything. I like to figure it out, learn, and try and jump into it. Because, hey, you can only watch so many videos before you have to actually jump in. So we got into a few limited partnership positions and we saw the returns coming in from 2018 to 2021. That's what we did. As other doctors are asking me about what I was doing, they're seeing me post about the returns and we talk about it at seminars. They're like, Alex, I want to save some taxes. I want to invest some of my money in real estate. I didn't feel like, Hayden, that I knew enough about it to tell others what to do or give them advice on what to do. So because I didn't know, I said, you know what, I need to, just like with medical, I need to get educated, right? So I dove in, joined the educational platform, Jake and Gino, joined the Mastermind, MIH Mastermind group, and got into multiple GP positions, multiple JV positions as well. And since then, we've gotten multiple doctors into investing in the multifamily space, and they're loving it. But that's
awesome.
And that's how we ended up here.
That's such a small world because Jake and Gino are in Knoxville, which I go to Knoxville every month for their meetup. And my business partner actually sold them a complex.
Wow. There you go.
The world gets real small when you get on the internet.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That's awesome. So when you first started investing, how did you get connected into the industry? You said you just signed up for a business conference. What did that look like?
It was that business conference was the Grant Cardone 10X conference.
Ah, okay.
I've been to multiple ever since. And when I was there, I started talking to other people that were in commercial real estate who says, yeah, we invest in syndications ourselves. And I was like, oh, wow. Okay. Okay. So I figured if these commercial guys know what they were doing after talking to 5 to 10 of them, then they must know something I don't. So I started talking to them more and more before I started investing. And the connections is key, especially after I got into the educational platforms and joined the mastermind. That's how we were able to have positions in GP. They allowed us to come in as a GP and learn. And I see it as just paying our dues, but you have to connect with
Absolutely.
people.
Yeah, it's people all the time are like, "You need to pay your dues, Hayden." I actually had someone I was in Puerto Rico. It was a woman. She was probably like 60 years old. She
Mm,
sold a small business, and I told her about kind of the things that I'm doing of traveling the world, connecting with people, and getting into real estate. And she was like, "You need to pay your dues." And it was funny because my friend, who's a large syndicator who I was there to visit, was driving the car. He told me he chuckled because he was like, "You're doing all the things you should be doing right now." And so paying your dues can look a little different. It's funny that you said that because I just had to tell a story. It's like sometimes paying your dues is like going to a class or going to a conference in Orlando and laying in the
right.
pool in the hot tub.
Hey, you got to enjoy it as well. And
Absolutely.
you got to have experiences. That's what I've realized in life. It's work is great, but what are we working for? We're working to be able to provide, but also to have experiences at the end of the day. That's where the memories are.
So tell me a little bit about some of the first connections that you made in real estate. When you first started hearing about what was possible with real estate, what were some of the first thoughts that went through your head?
People always talk about financial freedom, right? Time freedom, financial freedom. I never really thought that was something it was achievable or possible, or that just never came through my head. When I make connections with people and I started listening to what financial independence was, I was like, what are people talking about? Financial independence. Sat down with the guy at lunch and he says he's been in real estate for about 20 years. He says, financial independence is if your passive income can exceed your living expenses. Boom, you have financial independence. How is how? I never even thought about it like that. I always thought, okay, work, open a practice, open a second practice, and multiple practices in the future, and work till I'm 60, 70, and then get to enjoy. But the concept of financial independence was so brand new. I didn't know what it was. But once I realized it, I knew it was achievable. And that was in real estate, to me, that was a huge aha moment on how that works. And
I feel like another way to look at financial freedom or independence, whichever label you want to put on it, is if you get sick and can't work, if
mm,
that money's still coming in or not. So like, if you're not popping backs or being a chiropractor, right? Is that money still going to come in with you not being able to be in the day to day? And you can, I like to subsidize it. So it's like you keep your active income while you can, while you want to still, and then like you just get it up to where it's matching or exceeding, like you said. And then God forbid something happens. Or if you're just like, you know what? I think I'm done with this. I'm ready to enjoy. Then you can just walk away and it's all good.
absolutely. And today, once I knew about the concept, I ran the numbers. I said, that's actually really achievable within the next couple of years. Because by then I was already investing for 5, 6 years. So at the end of 2022, we actually were able to achieve that number.
It's
And when
awesome.
we achieved that number, it was like a big weight lift off my shoulders. But I continuously love being the doctor and
Mm.
being a doctor to our patients, training other doctors to become better doctors in our office. And now the perception is I've always gotten to do what I do because I get to do it. Right. But at the time before, it was still you were doing it because you were providing for your family. And now knowing that financial independence has been achieved and could be achieved, coming to the office is way more, you know what? I really just get to do this,
Yeah,
not
it's a
because I
joy.
actually have to. And I never
Yeah.
thought that concept was even doable.
But it also, in my opinion, it makes you a better business owner when you're not having to stress. I read on your website you're working 80 hours a week.
Yeah.
It takes a toll on you. How do you be the best doctor you can be, or the best manager, or whatever your position is in your business when you're working in it, when you're working 80 hours a week? It's not possible. We just aren't the best person that we can be when we're doing that to ourselves.
You got to take a little bit of time for yourself.
Yeah.
And these are, to tell you about the connections, it's all because I learned these things through connecting with others who are smarter, who are wiser, who live a longer life on what's important in life, because they look at it as looking at it in the rear view mirror, right? They've already been there, done it, and they can tell you the pitfalls, the mistakes that they've made. And it's better to learn from other people's mistakes so that you don't end up learning it and go from there.
So you mentioned you got started about 2 years ago, and it was actually easier than you thought when you mapped it out. And I wanted to make a point on that. And this is a connecting podcast, but also we talk about finances because they go together. Once you figure out what your goal is and you
Right.
quantify it and put it on paper, this has
Yes.
been an experience every time for me. It is immensely easier than you thought it would be. Once you have the roadmap and hey, I want to be here in 2 years, your brain works for you and works to get you to that goal because you quantified it. And that'd just be an exercise I'd recommend for anybody. That's like, if you hear an idea and you're like, that seems too hard, put it on paper and see what that would look like if it's something that you really want to
Yeah.
accomplish. Because humans are amazing. We can accomplish things that you would never imagine you can accomplish.
And things that you didn't think was possible. The moment I put it on paper, it made it real.
Hmm.
It made it achievable. Before, it was just a thought I had in my head, right? The thought of, oh, achieving financial independence. Oh, the thought of that was pretty cool. But to put on paper made it real. And when it's real, you really go after it.
Hmm.
You really go after it. Did it? And it's not so much you take the distractions out of your day to day, because social media, the things that you watch, the things that you listen to, you would think back to what you wrote down, because that's why I like writing, right? When you write it down versus typing it out, the brain registers it differently. You will remember it better because you now have a physical connection to it that wire it to your brain rather than just typing it out. It's just fingers moving, right? When you actually write it down, it took time to process that thought. And with nowadays, things happen so quickly, right? A text comes up, boom, you get it. And sometimes text could be read to you,
Yeah, absolutely. You're in the car and it's just like someone texted you.
and then they
Yeah,
read out the whole
absolutely.
text. So
Yeah,
it's definitely different.
absolutely. So I want to segue into your business. Is it Zephyr Equity? Awesome. So tell me about your first deal. What did that first deal look like?
Yeah. So the very first deal that we did, and it was a deal where they already had a group established. One of the GPs couldn't make it, and they needed another GP to come in, KP, help with asset management, marketing with the business. And they posted in one of the masterminds that we're part of. I learned to take action. So when someone posts something like, hey, this is what we're looking at, we need another person. Let me know if you guys are interested. And I met this person a couple weeks ago on a Zoom call. They live close by. I was like, okay. And we connected. Now, a lot of people in the message groups, when someone posts something, what do they say? Oh yeah, shoot me an email.
Send me info. Yeah.
Send me
There's
in,
like 5 people with a comment
right?
below to say, send me an email.
Send me info.
Yeah.
Now, send me info is great, but if I want to make things happen, I can't just say send me info. So I reply within 5 minutes. I said, let's hop on a call.
Mm.
You got time today? They're like, yeah, I got time right now. We were on our way to a vacation Airbnb. And I told my wife, I said, we need to stop at a shopping center, a Costco or something where you guys can walk around where I hop on the phone. We found the plaza, and within 20 minutes, we were on the phone. They told me about the deal. And while we were on the phone, they sent me the info. So we're looking at it live with each other. And we looked at it. My wife and I looked at the numbers, looked at the underwriting, and committed to the deal the next day.
Wow.
So when it's right, when the times are right, if you want to get things done, I feel like a lot of people wait. They wait till the next day. Oh, yeah, they'll be there the next day. Opportunities are not always going to come by. Someone else who's more eager to have it, to want it more, are going to come in and swoop that up. And it's been a continuously cash flowing deal, and it's still doing great, right? We've gone through a few management companies, but it's doing really right now. And we're super excited for that one. It's the very first one.
That's awesome. So that connection came through one of the mastermind.
Yeah, the
So
MIH Mastermind.
nice. So what groups are you a part of as far as like the mastermind communities go?
Yeah. So I'm a part of the MIH Mastermind that I'm really involved in, right? We're part of the Jake and Gino groups. I recently this year joined GoBundance, you know, and then I'm also in another group with other doctors and chiropractors as well. So
Nice.
4 groups total.
Awesome. I'm in the Action Academy mastermind with Brian Lubin, and that
Yeah,
one,
Brian Lubin's part of GoBundance.
yeah, Brian's in GoBundance.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So it's like
Yeah.
we have probably I think 20 GoBundance members in Action Academy. So it's like a mini GoBundance. It's really cool. But as soon as I made that change and invested in myself and in my network,
Mm.
everything started changing for me. Was that the case for you as well?
Oh, there's no doubt. You put money into it, and you got to put the time as well, right? You got to make the connections. Up until today, I still connect with a few people every single week, right? I like to connect with new people on a regular basis. You never know who you're going to meet, and provide value and get value as well at the same time. When you provide value, you will receive. I always look at how can I provide value to others because it matters, right? Someone at one point in time brought me up, and I'm always reaching up to others who are ahead to give me more knowledge about what's ahead, right? And when someone else does that, you just got to pay it forward and reach back and grab someone else and bring them with you.
You never know when that person that you're reaching back to help will be a potential partner, will
You never
be,
know.
and you don't do it for that reason. I've said this before in a few episodes. You don't go out of your way to help people oh, I'm going to get so much out of this in the future. That's not the thought. But it's been in
Yeah.
my personal experience that when you start taking care of others instead of focusing on taking care of yourself, everything is taken care of. It's a pretty
It's
incredible.
fulfilling.
Yeah.
It's selfish because it makes me feel so good when I help others out.
You're like, yeah, I totally understand that. And most people, this is part of our mindset thing too, right? Like we're, I would say both in more of a freedom giving mindset than the majority of people that kind of feel
Yeah, that
shackled
abundance
to
mindset.
a job when you feel like you aren't able to give when you can barely take care of yourself. So when you start taking care of yourself, then you're able to take care of others. Yeah. So that's awesome though. So the investment into that mastermind was a pretty big pivot point for you.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because everyone in masterminds, in the good ones, are very serious about making an impact in their life, in other people's lives, and having a phenomenal experience while you're doing it, right? The right mastermind will change everything. The right one. The
Yeah.
wrong one might actually pivot you from joining other masterminds. I talked to a gentleman just 2 days ago. He says, man, I joined this real estate mastermind and it was great when they sold me the program. And then when I got in, it wasn't what I thought it was. I reached out and people were just ghosting me. And I was like, wow. I said, and sometimes different people who even join the same mastermind can have a different experience. Does it mean that necessarily it was the wrong mastermind? Was it a bad mastermind? It was probably in his mind, it was the wrong one for him. But that mastermind, because it was the wrong one for him, turned him off other ones, which may or may not be potentially good for him. So
Mm.
picking the right ones, making sure you jive with the people in the mastermind, the leaders in their mastermind, that is really key.
Yeah. Yeah. And in case anyone who's listening doesn't know what a mastermind is, it's essentially most of the time it's going to be an online group. Then we also have in-person mastermind groups as well, but it's just a group of people that have aligned interests that come together to perpetuate their goals and to have accountability. It's for me, what that looks like is we have weekly calls. I have 2 weekly calls. I have a pod, which is like a small group of people that we get together, see what each other's goals are, how we're achieving those, where we're going. And then we have a large group call. We just had our group call last night with a guy he raised $5 million in the last year and just an incredible operator buying hotels. And so we get to glean knowledge from people who are doing larger things that are bigger than what we're doing typically. And you get to just absorb that information and ask questions. And so it's what a mastermind is overall.
Yeah.
Very cool. So going forward, what would you say your goals are right now? And you have 3 different businesses, correct? So
Mhm.
I do too. I know how that is. It can be all over the place. What does your next year or 2 look like for
The
you?
next year or two, this year, we're looking at stabilizing our current office, opening a second office. In the virtual assistant space, we're always looking at growing and helping other clients grow their businesses by showing them how to work with virtual assistants. And in real estate, it is right now about the operations. We have a certain amount of properties under our belt, and we want to make sure they're operated well especially for the investors that have invested with us. Because it's one thing to acquire a property, but it takes a different skill set and patience, due diligence, and people skills to actually operate the property as well. So that's one of the key things that we're focused on. And when deals come along, yeah, we'll definitely be able to take those down and work with our investors to do that. But this is the year of operations. You've probably heard and know of people who this year have struggled with their real estate, right? Some even into foreclosure. And had they been operated better, could it be dealt with a better way? So I believe that buying real estate is great, but you have to make sure that you're doing everything that you can for people's hard-earned money
Mm.
and operate it.
Yeah, buying real estate is great, but you have to make sure you can keep it.
That's it.
Because your real money is made in the long term most of the time. I mean, you can wholesale. I know plenty of wholesalers that make lots and lots of money, but your real wealth is built over time in real estate. So I see oftentimes it can be a little bit of a toxic thing in our industry as people are like, buy everything you can. It's like,
Mhm.
okay, yes, buy, but how do you keep? So
Right.
that you don't have to fire sale or lose money or lose investors' money. You need to really be keeping that front of mind.
And that's why we're really careful on what type of operators we work with. We don't raise for a lot of operators. We only raise for a few good ones, right? And the good ones that we've invested that we raise for are ones that I know really well, that I've worked with before. And we really analyze the deals to make sure I ask a lot of hard questions to make sure that the deal's good to go. And that's just after knowing the operators. Sometimes we've gotten people to ask us to raise for them, knowing when people know that you have circles of doctors and people who have high net worth, high income earners, they're very eager to want you to raise for them, right? But we can't do that. I don't know you enough. And if we
Mm.
never took the time to get to know each other, I'm not going to raise for you. I don't know what the deal looks like, and I don't know how you operate. I don't know anything about you. So I keep my close circles. I have my close circles that we do it with because I know, trust, and we verify them.
Do you feel like it's been an advantage to you to be able to, you know, to be a healthcare professional? Because I know that you alluded to it is healthcare professionals and especially doctors that own practices, they're making a lot of money, but they have a tax problem because you're making 500,000, a million, whatever it is per year, but it's all straight income. There's no,
Right.
you have your equipment depreciation. So have you found that to be a little bit of a benefit to you being a healthcare professional to have those connections?
There's no doubt. There's no doubt that is a benefit because that's the people that I have circled with for the last 15 years I was in practice, right? And but do you have to be a healthcare professional in order to raise for healthcare professionals? No, I don't believe so. You really have to get good at communicating with people.
Hmm.
Now, you have to get to know them though and know what their struggles are. And that's why a lot of specialists say the best person that you can communicate with is you 2 to 5 years ago, right? Because you know how the whole thing works. You know what they're thinking, you know what their pain points are, what they're struggling through. Like I know doctors that are high income, they don't know what to do. They pay a lot in taxes. We can talk about staff, we can talk about marketing, we can talk about production, right? We operate in the under the same umbrella, if you will.
Mhm.
So it does give me an advantage to talk to other doctors who are business owners. But for example, guys who are in tech, I may not be able to connect with them as well. I
Exactly.
don't live the same lifestyle they do. I don't speak the same professional lingo.
So this brings up a great point for me is when you're starting your journey, think about the experience that you have and how you can relate that to what you're trying to do.
Mhm.
Um, all of my experience before I started being an entrepreneur, I've been an entrepreneur since I was 14, selling and buying things. It's not that difficult, but I worked in the restaurant industry. That's what I did for 4.5 years. I worked at Chick-fil-A. And so I learned how to communicate with customers and make people happy, right?
Mm,
So how do I take making people happy and put that in with investing? And I had to learn how to present better. I had to learn how to be a better salesperson. Those were skills I had to acquire, but I had a down pat on the service side.
right.
If I'm selling something, I can give them the best service because I know how to do that. If someone that's listening to this wants to get more freedom, they want to start investing or start a business or whatever it may be, think about what life has prepared you for and what your strengths are and lean into those, utilize those to their full extent because we're blessed with these different, I don't know the first thing about healthcare. That's just, it's not something that I'm involved in. I can, I can pull a few things out of my hat that I have heard on the TV or learning
Right.
anatomy over the years, but I'm not going to have the most productive conversation with the healthcare professional. So if you're
Right.
trying to connect to somebody, where can you come together? What grounds bind you together? And then take that and lean all the way into it.
Yeah. Find a common ground that you can bond with, right? It's all about the bond, the shared experiences. And that's how, and just make the best out of it. Think about what kind of pain points this person's having. If you can think about the pain points of what this person is having, the struggles that they're dealing with, and get into a really deep conversation with them, that's really key. It's that deeper conversation, more than just, "Oh, how you doing? What's going on in your life? Where you been to the last year?" That deeper, ask one layer deeper, peel it back like an onion, right? And see what they're willing to give up. And some
Mm.
people are going to be willing to be more vulnerable and tell you more. Some people are going to be a little bit more reserved and save it for the next conversation, right? Eventually, you're going to know. We have patients here. We do that all the time. I always like to find out their why. Like, why are they here? Right? We work with people in a lot of chronic pain, and they come in and Hayden, they'll tell us, "Well, I want to be out of pain." Yeah, Mr. Jones, everybody wants to be out of pain. you've been in pain for 5 years. Why now? Why now? And they will start telling you things. I haven't been able to ride my motorcycle the last year. And how long have you been riding your motorcycle? Oh, I've been riding my motorcycle for 40 years, but in the last year, I just haven't. So you're telling me you've been riding your motorcycle for the last 40 years and within the last year, you haven't touched it? They're like, yeah, gosh, I don't even know what that feels like. And they're like, it's terrible. So now that's one pain point. Now, you might ask a little deeper question. What is it about riding the motorcycle that you want to do so much? Why did you fall in love with it in the first place? Why do you keep loving it? They might tell you, because I just feel so free when I do it. Or they might say, my wife, who's passed away, her and I used to go on trips. And whenever I ride a motorcycle, I feel like I'm with her. Right? So everyone has different reasons. But their surface reason, as a doctor, they always tell you because I'm in pain. But as you dig and peel the layers back, it's a little bit different. It's going to be a little different. And every investor is like that, right? Every investor could be a little different as well. And once you get their ultimate, why are they doing it? Provide for their kids that they've never had before, right? Is it to provide for something else? There's a deeper why. And when you can get to that deeper why, and if someone feels comfortable enough to share with you their deeper why, that's how you've made a connection.
So I'm curious about this. This is obviously not medical advice, but as your opinion as a doctor, how much of healing is up here and how much is actually in the physical? Like when you were talking about the motorcycle story, I think about, I was having a conversation with my friend Jeff. It's like, if you think you're sick, then you probably are.
You're going to
right?
think yourself into sickness.
Is that correct? Because that's like how I feel. So if you feel bad about yourself, you're probably not going to feel great, right?
The thing is that negative thinking really causes your cells and your neurons to act a certain way. It will produce more stress, inflammatory hormones in the body. And that, enough of that chronically will make a person sick. 100%. Our body is not built for chronic inflammation and chronic worrying and chronic fear. It's made for spurts of that.
In reaction.
But not chronically. So someone who is in a very stressful environment, whether it's work, relationship, environment, ultimately, part of their system will start to fail, usually starting with their adrenal glands. When their adrenal glands fail, their thyroid starts suffering. Their thyroid doesn't work correctly. Their estrogen and testosterone don't work correctly. Eventually, the way they digest food, their sex hormones, their liver hormones, pancreas, everything starts to fail slowly. See, chronic stress is like a slow death. Slow, harsh. You think you can just go and plow through it and not take the time to relax. How many people and stories have we heard where people could make the most money in the world, live a lavish lifestyle on the outside, and all of a sudden finding out that they're sick on the inside? And then they'll pay whatever money and whatever price to buy time back. Huge mind-body connection. Hayden, huge.
Yeah, I love it. It's so powerful, because you have to watch how you speak to yourself. And when I was in insurance sales, it's one of the hardest times in my life because it's selling life insurance is one of the hardest things you can do. If you want to stretch your mental toughness, go try and sell some life insurance. It'll really stretch you out. But in a multi-level marketing company, just like with Amway and all these things, it's like you're doing something that's really hard. And so they have a lot of mindset training. And they always talk about, be careful how you talk to yourself. And that wasn't an experience for me. It wasn't really good for my mental health at all. But I did learn a lot from that experience I did take that of, I need to be careful how I talk to myself. Today's going to be a good day if I make it a good day. And there's There's my friend Megan. She has this calendar. It's like I think it has 108 or it's like 80 or 100 years. And every day she fills in the bubble. So it's your life in a book. And
Mhm.
every day you fill in the bubble just to remind you of, like, you flip a few pages back and you're like, whoa, there's only so many bubbles in here. Like, I need to make today great.
Yeah, it's true. It's so true. If every day you got to look at least, I would say at least every quarter, people should reevaluate if everything that they're doing is what they really want out of life, right? Because at the end of the day, there's articles out there that talks about the 5 biggest regrets, right? And one of them, for men especially, was they wish they didn't work so hard, right? They didn't. No one said, "I wish I work harder,"
Yeah.
or "I wish I work more." And of course, when they did the survey, a lot of the guys were in their 80s and 90s and whatnot, and it was during the 40, 50, and 60s when they were working. So that's where most people would say is, I wish I didn't work as hard. I wish I spent more time with family and friends and connecting. And it's always better to learn from someone else's mistakes than try to make your own, because those mistakes you can't get back.
Yeah. This is in Brian's book. I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life that others expected of me. It was talking about the five,
5 things. That's
talking
right.
about the 5 things. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I read those and I was like, wow, just thinking about, I wish I wouldn't have worked so hard. That was the other one. And not that you shouldn't work hard. Doesn't
Right.
mean go be lazy,
No.
but like, don't work yourself to death.
Yeah.
Because-
Be able to enjoy the experiences. I'm reading a book right now that a friend of mine recommended. He recommended this book called Die with Zero.
Hmm.
And it talks about the life experiences, responsibly, of course, on how we try to delay gratification. We're a delayed gratification type of culture. But there's a certain point where you can delay the gratification, but also there's a certain age where you can't even receive those gratifications anymore. So certain experiences need to be had, because at the end of the day, that's what we have. We have our memory
yeah.
and the experiences that comes with it.
And tomorrow's not guaranteed, right? You don't know what's coming. So
Nothing's guaranteed.
Brian, that's right. Brian talks about his 10-year rule. If I'm going to remember doing this in 10 years, I will find a way to pay for it. You know,
Yeah.
it's if this is an experience that I will not forget, that will be life-changing for me, I will find a way to pay for it, and I'll put it on Amex if I have to. And that's what I'm living out this year. Is I love to travel. I'm 23 years old and I'm single, so I can go wherever I want. There's no ball and chain holding me back. So I set a goal for myself. I want to travel every single month to somewhere different.
Yeah.
And I was on the phone with our chief operating officer of the Mastermind yesterday, and she's like, hey, no, think about it with your goal that you set and you put out there for everyone to know. Why don't we do like regional mastermind meetups, and you can just go travel around the country and you plan these meetups and bring everyone together, and you can actually get paid to do your goal.
There-
Sign me up. So that's what happens when you put your goals out there. And for some people, they just wish they can travel once a year.
Yeah.
And I don't take that for granted. I'm very blessed and thankful for the opportunity I have, but I truly believe that if anybody just set the goal and gave themselves enough time, but didn't get apathetic, it could be achieved.
You never know what type of opportunities will come up. And that's also why I also like to listen to my staff talk about their goals, virtual assistant staffs or in-house staff.
Mhm.
Because as a leader, it's like, how can I make those happen for you as you make things happen for us? Right. And that's part of being a leader, is knowing your people, the people that you're leading, enough to care enough about them to know about their goals. Because as they help your company and help you succeed, well, they got to win too, right?
Mm.
It keeps them in the game at
Yeah.
the same time.
And then when one of your employees has a bigger goal than you, maybe they're your operator.
There you go.
You know, maybe they get to replace you, because it's really interesting when you start getting into the higher level of things. It's like, you're probably not the best at what you're doing.
Yeah.
Even though you may think you are, there's probably someone that's better at what you do.
Oh,
If someone comes to you and that, you're hurting yourself by not promoting them to a higher level than you in your company.
right.
Because at some point, there will always be a time where someone can do things better than we can.
100%.
And you have to
You-
recognize that.
You see that in athletic teams, right?
Mhm.
The coach is the coach, the CEO, the owner is the owner, the players are the players,
Yeah,
right?
that's awesome.
So, yeah.
Cool. Well, I love where this conversation went. This was fantastic. It's really one of my favorite subjects to talk about is mindset and thinking your way to, there's obviously Thinking to Rich, like the Napoleon Hill book. It's quintessential.
Right.
But it's real. Like it's a case, the case study is me. Put your goals out there.
Absolutely real.
And just like you, Alex, you're like, I'm going to put my goals out there. And then this opportunity falls in your lap, right? Of you seeing it on the Facebook, but there were so many actions that led to that working and led to that happening.
Hayden, thank you so much for having me today.
You're very welcome.
Appreciate
I have one more question for you before we go.
Yeah, let's do it.
So I like to ask this to every guest that comes on.
Okay.
Is there a person or a group of people that comes to top of mind for you that you can think about that when you met them, it really just changed your trajectory?
There's different groups of people at different times that has changed my trajectory. When I first, back in 2016, 2018, I went to the Grant Cardone conference, but I read his first book, the Be Obsessed or Be Average. In 2016, I started watching his videos. At that time, it was very life-changing for me. That was the first time, Hayden, I actually looked outside of medical and chiropractic world for success, right? And in real estate, joining Jake and Gino and the MIH Mastermind were the two most important things that I've done in our real estate. That has gotten us relationships and partnerships within real estate. And through that, we also have a virtual assistant agency that sprouted from that. So now we're talking about within the last 2 to 3 years, 2 other businesses where before it was just the medical side alone. As we grow, different groups may shine a little bit more, right? Now I lean really into the educational space where Jake and Gino was. I feel like I'm still in this space, but I lean a little bit more into the MIH mastermind space and the Goal Abundance space, because now the time is not as much. You still have to educate yourself on a regular basis, but it's more also about creating connections. And that's what those 2 other groups are right for me right now.
That's awesome. Awesome. Alex, thank you so much for coming on. I have really enjoyed this episode and thank you for reaching out to me. It's such an honor to be able to host people from different backgrounds. You're in California, right?
California, Northern Nevada, in the Tahoe area.
I'm over here, all the way in Tennessee. So it's just a really cool world. So, and I'm sure we'll run into each other at some point. Because,
no doubt.
When you start networking, when you start being intentional about meeting people, we'll find so many connections where it's like, whoa, no way, I'm going to be there in 3 months too. Let's go and grab coffee. And so it truly is an incredible superpower. But thank you for listening to the Art of Connecting podcast. And one thing I do ask is if you can go up and leave a 5-star review on Spotify, or if you scroll down on Apple Podcasts, leave that 5-star review. It helps people find the podcast, helps us get the word out about it, and share it with a friend if you got value out of this. And we'll see you sometime soon, Alex.
All right. See you later.